Have you ever looked up and realized your dog was already watching you? Not barking, not asking for anything, just looking. Sometimes the dog is lying across the room while you read, watch television, or sit quietly at the end of the day. And every so often you notice those eyes directed toward you. Many people immediately feel that the stare must mean something important, perhaps affection, perhaps curiosity, perhaps a request for attention. And sometimes those explanations may be true. But the interesting part is that the same behavior can appear in very different situations. A dog may look at you while feeling relaxed, while waiting for something, while observing a familiar routine, or for reasons that are not immediately obvious at all. From the outside, the behavior looks remarkably simple. A dog sits and looks, yet that quiet moment may have more than one meaning. And the difference is often found in details most people never think to watch. What makes a dog's stare feel so meaningful? Part of the answer may have more to do with us than with the dog. People naturally pay attention to eyes. A glance across a room can capture our attention faster than many other signals. And when someone is looking directly at us, we almost automatically begin searching for a reason. The same thing often happens with our dogs. The moment we notice them watching us, we start wondering what they might be thinking. Are they showing affection, waiting for something, trying to communicate? In many cases, we instinctively assign emotions and intentions to the stare long before we know what it actually means. But dogs may look at people for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the meaning is social, sometimes it is practical, sometimes it may simply be connected to what is happening around them in that moment. From a distance, those different situations can look surprisingly similar, which is why the difference often becomes visible only when we begin paying attention to the small details surrounding the stare itself. Of all the different kinds of stares dogs give us, one of the easiest to recognize is the soft look. You may have seen it during a quiet moment at home. Your dog is resting nearby. Nothing exciting is happening. No one is reaching for a leash. No food is being prepared. Yet, for a few seconds, your dog simply looks in your direction. The eyes appear relaxed. The face looks loose rather than tense. Breathing remains slow and steady. The body stays comfortable, without signs of urgency or anticipation. And perhaps the most interesting detail is that the dog often remains calm even if you do nothing at all. You do not need to speak, you do not need to pet him, you do not even need to look back. The moment passes naturally. In many cases, this kind of stare may be part of a comfortable social connection rather than a request for something specific. It feels quiet, almost effortless, which is why people sometimes miss it completely. Because unlike many other forms of communication, this look rarely asks for attention. It simply exists. Not every stare is about social connection. Sometimes a dog is watching because he believes something is about to happen. You may notice it a few minutes before a walk, or when you move toward the kitchen at a certain time of day. Perhaps you reach for an item you use every evening, and suddenly your dog is paying very close attention. The stare appears focused, not tense, not demanding, just attentive. In these moments, the dog may be following a familiar sequence rather than reacting to an emotion. Over time, dogs become remarkably good at noticing patterns, a certain movement, a particular sound, a routine that repeats day after day. And once those patterns become predictable, a stare can sometimes be part of the waiting process. The dog is not necessarily asking for something. He may simply be watching for the next step in a sequence he has learned to expect. That is what makes this kind of look easy to misunderstand. From the outside, it can appear deeply personal. Yet in many cases, the dog may be focused less on you and more on what usually happens next. The stare is still meaningful, but the meaning may have more to do with anticipation than emotion. There's another kind of stare that many owners notice, especially during quiet evenings at home. Imagine you are sitting on the couch with a book or your phone. The room is calm. Nothing unusual is happening. Your dog is resting on the other side of the room. He does not walk over. He does not bring a toy. He is not asking for food. He is not trying to get your attention. For a while, he seems completely occupied with doing nothing at all. Then he lifts his head and looks at you. A few seconds pass, and he settles back down again. Several minutes later, it happens once more. The pattern can feel surprisingly mysterious. Because the dog is clearly watching, yet he does not appear to want anything. There is no obvious request, no obvious goal, and that is often the moment when people begin searching for deeper explanations. Sometimes we assume the dog must be thinking about us, missing us, studying us, trying to communicate something important. But in reality, the reason may be much simpler than we imagine. Dogs spend a great deal of time observing the world around them, and sometimes that observation happens quietly, without any immediate purpose we can easily recognize. Still, one question remains. Why does eye contact feel so significant in the first place? To explore that question, researchers began taking a closer look at the role of visual attention and eye contact in relationships between dogs and humans. The idea that eye contact might play a special role between dogs and humans has attracted the attention of researchers for years. One well known study explored what happens when dogs and their owners spend time looking at one another in a calm, natural setting. Researchers found that longer periods of mutual gaze were associated with increases in oxytocin, a hormone often linked to social bonding. What made the finding especially interesting was that a similar pattern appeared in both dogs and people. The results suggested that eye contact may be one of the ways social connection is reinforced between the two species. But there is an important detail that is easy to miss. The study did not show that every stare means affection, and it certainly did not suggest that every dog is experiencing the same emotion each time it looks at a person. What the research supports is something more careful. Eye contact can be meaningful, it can be part of a social relationship, and in some situations, it may help strengthen that connection over time. But that does not mean every long stare should be interpreted in the same way, because the meaning of a stare still depends on what is happening around it. And that is where many people make a small mistake. They focus on the eyes first, when the rest of the body may be providing the most important clues of all. That brings us to one of the most important differences people often miss. When a dog looks at us, our attention naturally goes straight to the eyes. But dogs rarely communicate with their eyes alone. A stare that appears warm and relaxed in one situation may look very, very different in another. The eyes may be similar. The body may not be. Sometimes the posture remains loose and comfortable. Movement stays natural. Breathing is calm. At other times, the dog may become unusually still. The body appears more rigid. Breathing may change. Attention becomes narrowly focused on a particular person, object, or event. And that is where context begins to matter. Because the same stare can accompany very different emotional states: relaxation, expectation, uncertainty, intense concentration. From a distance, those moments may look almost identical, yet the meaning can be very different. This is where many owners make a simple mistake. They try to read the eyes first, but dogs often explain the stare with the rest of the body: the position of the head, the tension in the muscles, the way the dog is standing, the amount of movement or stillness. Those details may reveal far more than the eyes alone, which means a stare rarely tells the whole story by itself. Very often, the rest of the body is doing most of the talking. So the next time you notice your dog looking at you, try looking beyond the eyes. Take a moment to notice the breathing. Is it slow and relaxed, or slightly quicker than usual? Look at the body. Does it appear loose and comfortable, or is there tension somewhere in the posture? Notice whether your dog remains still or continues moving naturally. Pay attention to distance as well. Is your dog choosing to stay close, watching from across the room, moving nearer or farther away as the situation changes? And perhaps most importantly, consider what is happening around the two of you at that moment. Is it close to a walk, part of a familiar routine, or simply a quiet evening at home? Small details like these often provide the context that gives a stare its meaning, because the look itself is only one piece of a much larger picture. Sometimes the most important part of a stare is not the eyes themselves. It may be everything happening around them. And once you begin noticing those small details, the look may start telling a very different story.